Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing some brake upgrades, but before I get into that, just going to update you with a few things that I've done to the Z since you last saw it. So we're doing the black interior in the last video. Since then I've got the black dash installed, looks pretty good. I've got these black door cards installed and the carpet is holding up very nicely. Also got these new side skirts on. A few of you have seen them, but now they're all painted up and installed finally. Looks very good, I think. But yeah, going back to the brakes, I'm going to be swapping out the calipers for some better stuff. Right now they just have the stock calipers, just a single piston non-turbo Z31 brake caliper, and what we're going to be doing is upgrading to Z32 calipers. This one has already been rebuilt, and we're going to be rebuilding the other side today. I'm going to show you how to do everything, taking the pistons out, the seals, painting it, and putting it back together. So this one over here is for the driver side, and it looks great. But yeah, I'm going to show you guys how to do the other side. So we'll go inside real quick and we'll get started. Okay, so we're inside, just on the workbench here. So this caliper is the one that I already rebuilt, nice and clean, and this is what it looked like before. So as you can see, somebody painted it before, whoever had these last. They did a pretty crappy job. It's just hand painted with a paintbrush with some really thick, weird paint. It was really hard to strip off actually, so I'll be having to do that again. The inside, super dirty. There's brake dust everywhere. The pistons are a little bit rusty. The boots are ripped. So yeah, basically everything's going to be coming apart here. And what you're going to need, obviously, you're going to need a rebuild kit. You can get this on Rock Auto. You can get it on Z1 Motorsports. You know, they're not too expensive, under 20 bucks. You're going to need a compressor and one of these. This is just an air blower with a rubber tip. And what we're going to be doing is sending compressed air into the brake fitting, which is going to push these pistons out, but you're going to need a way to stop them. So that's why I have these wood blocks. You can also use brake pads, but really what we're doing is just going to be putting them kind of in different orders like this so that we can get one piston out at a time. You don't want all of them, you know, flying out. So I'm going to get the camera set up and I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so there's no real order to this. Like I said, I'm just going to be using these wood blocks in various shapes and sizes to kind of push out the pistons. You can, you know, copy exactly the way I do it. You can do it your own way. I'm just kind of winging it, and it, you know, worked out fine on the last caliper. So just, yeah, you can watch and feel free to copy me. But I'm going to get started and we'll see what happens. So there we go, got all 4 pistons out. Took a little bit of creativity with the blocks, and I even used some wrenches to kind of fit into the smaller areas. But like I said, you just have to be very creative in kind of determining you know, how to set everything up. It's not the end of the world if one of them pops out. You can easily push it back in to reseal it. But yeah, got them all out. This is what they look like. They're just steel, they're hollow. Can take all the boots off because we're going to be replacing these. But now with all of this out, you can take apart the rest of the caliper. I'm going to be splitting them in half. The caliper just has these 4 big bolts on the back. We'll also take the bleeder back out. That will again separate everything into 2 halves. And then yeah, I'll start on cleaning everything and you know, getting all the paint off. I'm not going to show that just because it's kind of boring and it's time consuming. So after I take this caliper apart, I will cut to when the caliper is nice and clean, and we'll continue from there. Okay, so it took a decent amount of time, but finally got everything cleaned up, got all of the old paint removed. I just used some heavy-duty paint stripper and a wire brush, and yeah, pretty much worked pretty well. I have the caliper temporarily back together because, as you can see here, I was just doing some grinding on the front face of the caliper here. I did the same thing with the last caliper, but just the way my wheels are, it's a little bit close there, so just to add a little bit of space, I just took off about 1 millimeter or 2 here. My car already has spacers on it. If I go any bigger, it kind of looks a little bit odd, but you guys will see that when we install these. But yeah, now that that's all done, grinded, I'm going to just clean everything up again, and then we're going to get started for paint, and then after the paint we'll go ahead and get the new seals in with the pistons. For anybody wondering how I got the red color, so originally I bought this header paint, this red header paint. They didn't have this caliper paint in stock, so I thought this would be okay, but it has a little bit of an orange tint to it, which I didn't like, so I went ahead and found some of the VHT caliper paint in red, so that came out really nice. But to give it some metallic flake, I had this laying around. This is just like a very deep candy apple red from Duplicolor. I just very lightly mist that on, and it kind of gave it a good sparkle. And then just some high heat clear coat to keep it together and protected. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this painted real quick, and I'll meet you guys back here when we're ready to put everything back together. Alright, so I just finished up painting the calipers. They came out great, just like the other ones. We got like a matte red finish. Have a new bleeder in the back here. The inside, nice and clean. I kind of brake cleaned inside of all here. I've got my compressor out, and I blew through all these little passages just to make sure nothing's stuck in there. And yeah, we're pretty much ready for the rebuild process. Before we begin that, I'm just going to make a little note about the brake line inlet here. So there is a little bit of a fitting in there. If you're going to use stock Z31 brake lines or stainless steel braided lines made for the Z31, this will not work. You're going to have to press that out. I'm going to be doing that, so I'll show you how to do it. If you're going to use Z32 conversion lines or something like that, then you don't have to. But it's a very simple process. As you can see, there's a little hole just in the very bottom here. That's the inlet for the fluid, and it's basically just a little steel fitting. I'm just going to get a punch. We'll punch that out real quick, and then we'll start on the seals and everything. Alright, so now that we have the little fitting out of the back side of the caliper, we can start on putting everything back together. So we have our 4 cylinders over here that I cleaned up. We have our 4 inner seals, we have 4 dust boots, and then 4 retainers for the dust boots. And then we also have these 2 little O-rings just for the middle of the 2 sections when they connect together. I have some brake fluid in a little container here just because we're going to have to lube up some of the seals so we don't rip them when we're putting them in. And that's about it. So I'm going to start with the front here. So we're going to start off with these inner seals here. If we take a closer look at the caliper, you can see there are some grooves in there, and that's where these are going to sit. So we're going to put a little bit of brake fluid on here, and then they're going to clip into these little sections super easily, and then we'll go ahead and get the cylinders in right after that. Alright, so we got the seals in there. You can see they're nice and smooth and flat. And now we can press in our cylinders. You can either put the dust boots on first or after. I'm going to do them after. Doesn't really matter. But basically we're going to grab the cylinder here, and we're going to put a bunch of brake fluid just around the outside to help it slide in easily. And then it just simply slots in, push it in with a little bit of force, and that's it. Alright, and now we have the cylinders in. This one went in super simple. This one took a little bit of force, but if you feel like anything's not really slipping in right, just try again, take it out. You don't want to rip the seal like I said. But yeah, now with those done, we can get the dust boots on. So they just have this kind of little lip on the inside, and that's going to stretch around the cylinder and clip into the little groove that it has, and then the outside of the dust boot is going to clip around the outer circle that's part of the caliper. Alright, so we got the outer dust boots on. As you can see, they're kind of clamped around that outer ring. I don't have the metal retainers on yet, so we're going to do that right now. This is what they look like. They're kind of just like this spiral shape, and they kind of overlap a little bit. We just have to kind of pull them apart a bit and work it around each cylinder. It's going to look a little weird because they don't quite reach all the way around. That's totally normal though. So I'm going to give it a try and we'll see how it works out.
Chuki beef.
Alright, so this one went fine, that one was a little tricky, but they're both in now. As you can see, they kind of fit along that lower groove, and then they look a little odd at the top, but that's normal. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So we got the first half done. I'm going to do the other thing to the other half, or the same thing to the other half, and then when they're ready to go together, I'll catch up with you guys and I'll show you how to do that. Right now it's time to put the two halves back together. So like I said before, we have these little O-rings, and they're going to fit just inside of the little groove like that on both sides. And then we're going to grab our 4 bolts, and I'm going to put a little bit of thread lock just on the very end of each, and then we're going to thread it through and we're going to tighten them down. And for the final torque spec, not a lot of people seem to know what it is. I'm just going to go with a ratchet, and we're just going to kind of snug them all down, and we'll give them one good tug at the end, and that should be more than enough. Alright, so everything's finished up, both calipers all together, rebuilt and painted. I still have to color in the Nissan letter in here black just to match this side over here, but pretty much everything's done. All the new seals, as you saw. Definitely a pretty straightforward job, a lot easier than I thought, so if you feel like you can tackle that job, go for it. I 100% recommend it. It's very easy, and the parts are very cheap. So in the next video, I am going to be installing these on the car, new pads, new rotors, and I'll show you kind of how everything lines up, and you know, we're going to be putting some braided stainless steel lines on as well. So if you're interested in that, just keep an eye open for that video, and I'll see you then.